Hello guys, today I would like to make a video quite different than the other videos from my courses and everything. Today it's not really a CAD tutorial. Today I want to show you something. Right, I found this CAD file on a website. You know there are websites where you can download files for free. Right, so someone was selling this. As I said, this is not a CAD tutorial. I'm just using this file. I actually bought this file because I want to show you how a bad ring look like. This is not about I like it, I don't like it. The video I'm gonna make today, it's like from a technical point of view, why this ring, I think, in my personal opinion, it's wrong. I'm not criticizing anyone's work. I'm not gonna say who did it. I'm not gonna write down any names. I don't know who did it actually, so doesn't matter. Right. Why do I think, and again this is my personal opinion, that this ring is wrong? Several things. First of all, if you look at the shank, it's not the first thing that is wrong, but the shank you can see that it's very thin. This file I assume has been done in Matrix because of the gems layout. It doesn't really matter. As I said, this is not a CAD tutorial. I'm just using Rhino because this file I got it in Rhino format, so I could use a whiteboard to show you. Why do I think it's wrong? First of all, as I said, the thickness of the shank. Let's measure this. Line dimension. Let's see, this is 1.3. Right, 1.3 on the CAD, it's gonna be 1.1 once it's clean up and polished. So in my opinion, it's too thin. If you check the sides, 1.5. Again, 1.5 is going to end up being 1.3. I usually would not make it less than 1.5 on the final. So when I made the CAD file, I tend to use 1.8. Some 1.6 I would consider it thin already. Okay, it's not like super bad, but it's too thin anyway. What else is wrong here? Right, you can see the way this joins to this, it's just too thin. It's like overall the whole model it's flimsy, so this setting it's just too thin everywhere, so the stone is not really secure. It's quite likely that the setter might not be even be able to set it properly. If you see the claw, it's like too inside the stone. It doesn't need to be. Like that should be fine. You have to bear in mind that the metal contracts. The metal is rings a little bit always. So like this is usually how I would do it. Like that is way too much. The problem that you could find is once the setter is setting it is that the setter needs to remove a lot of metal. So once the setter is setting the claw, you will end up with a little bump here. So that's just not nice. It shouldn't be like that. The thickness is alright. I think that's gonna be like 0.8 or something like that. Dimensions, line dimensions. I know 1.1. So it's alright. In terms of thickness, it's alright. What else? This. We talk about the thickness when I was on perspective, this way, which should be a bit thicker, but it should always be thicker this way. So I'm not editing the file properly now. I just want to show you what I would change. This should be thicker. Yeah. I tend to make it quite thick and I tend to make it straight. You could also make it round, it's possible, but it should be thicker. And this one, it's not really bad, but at least here should be like 0.8, and something tells me that this is gonna be a bit thin. 0.8, just about right. But still, I would also make it a bit thicker, and I would not make it round. I tend to make it straight. Also, if you look from the side view, the setting goes pretty much straight down. Ideally, this should go like that, at least, more of an angle. Okay, this claw goes very straight. It's not that it will affect the manufacturing. I mean, you will still be able to make it, to print it and cast it, but it's much nicer when you look at it if the setting is tapering towards the shank. Also, the shank would make it a bit narrower. I might remake the whole ring later myself. So it's alright. Yeah. Also the taper, if you see, if you trace a line from here to here, you see, you have an empty space here that you shouldn't have. It's not going straight. It's like, I'm exaggerating now, but it goes a bit like this, which it shouldn't. It should always go straight. Okay. There are many ways that you can make a shank. You could always make it, instead of like this, like this. A bit like this. I'm not showing step by step how to do something. As I said, this is not a CAD tutorial. I just want you to understand why, in my opinion, this design is wrong. Right, so as I was saying, this shank at the moment goes a bit like that. It's curving in, which shouldn't be like that. You could make it either straight, probably not so straight, probably more like this, or like this, but not curving in like that. Another thing, the shape of the claws, technically it's possible to make it round. You could have also, this is like my suggestion, it's not that it's wrong, but you could have also make it a bit like this. Something similar to this, so it looks a bit nicer once it's set. What else? As I said, the way this joins with this, you cannot have this. You can either make this in one part or in two parts, but what you cannot have is this. It would be a bit better, slightly better, if this was a bit lower, and then you just chop off the whole setting like this. Okay, if you just chop it off like that, it would be better. Still, it would be wrong. Could be improved substantially, but it would be better. What else? Well, the main thing I wanted to show you is the thickness of the whole thing, especially the shank. I'm gonna make another video now. I might put both videos together, how I would make it. Okay. Again, this is not me criticizing someone's work. I just want you to understand why this design would be wrong. Also, on the very top, well, no, it's quite alright. I was about to say, I thought this would be sharper. Well, of course, this is wrong. You cannot have this. You cannot have a little gap there. It should be joined together. But what I was about to say, some people, not in this case, but in some models, I've seen people doing this. When you have a triangular profile, you cannot make an exact triangle. If you have a profile like this, I'm just gonna make something simple. I'm gonna make this as a band, just for you to show you. Right. Imagine that this was a ring, which is obviously not, but imagine that this was a ring. You cannot have edges like this, basically because they will just wear out. It's gonna go very soft. The edge is too sharp. So if you make it like that, it's gonna start breaking. Even on the wax, when you print the wax, it's gonna break apart. So if you have to make a triangular profile, what you would do is this. You always have to allow a little flat on the sides, and on the top you could just make a fillet, maybe not that much, just a tiny little fillet, something like that. Right, this would be a triangular profile. If you make an exact triangle, it's just not gonna work. Let me make it look more like a ring. Okay, so now if I turn this into a ring, right, this is how a triangular profile should look like. I'm aware that this is not a ring, but this is how a triangular profile should look like. Here should be 0.6, 0.8, I don't know what it is now, but you need a bit of a flat. So if you have an angle like this, it's fine, it's safe, but you cannot have it like what we had before, because it just breaks apart. Yeah. What else? I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to sound like I'm destroying someone's work, but I just thought it would be interesting for you guys to know. Okay, so following the previous part of the video, what I made is I basically edit the ring. Well, I made it from scratch basically. This is one way to do it. There are many different ways. The only thing I would like to make sure you see is what I've done here. So you can see the shank, still it's D-shape, but allows a nice flat shape on the side. Also the claws are a bit thicker. Well, actually they're a bit thinner, but more squarish. For emeralds it tends to look a bit nicer like this. I could have also done a 2 round double claw. I did also the ring to be conceived in 2 parts. So you can make the shank in yellow and the top in white, or whatever you want. This, I tend to make this quite flat always. My advice would be, if you're gonna use a polisher who the idea here is that if you make it flat and your polisher does it right, it's gonna look amazing. In my opinion, it looks better if it's straight. If you cannot polish it so well, just make it round, because it's gonna look better. It's really bad if you make it straight and you polish it really badly, or you clean it up very badly. So it's really up to you. This is one way to do it. This is 0.8 because I tried to keep it similar to the original design, but in my opinion I would make it 0.9 or even 1 mil. This gap it's also 0.8. Could be a bit more, could be a bit less, doesn't really matter. This under bezel, under the stone, I tend to make it quite thick. Something a bit thinner would still be right. Yep, maybe something like that. Some people might bring the claws a bit in. I think they are already quite in, but it could be more. Also, the thickness of the shank and the shape of the shank, I try to keep it as similar as possible to the original one, but I would not make it like this. I would make it differently. But again, that is my personal opinion. Also, as seen from the top, I allow a bit more metal around the stone. That's to allow for cleanup and polishing. Usually, if you make it exactly the same size as the stone, it will end up something like that, like underneath the stone. So you don't want that really. It doesn't look nice. So I always make it like 3-4% bigger than the stone. Also, the shank has this profile. So that, as I said before, I think you need to allow a bit of a gap to avoid having an angle like this. Because if you have this angle, this corner, it gets battered, it gets destroyed. Especially if you're working with soft metals like silver, this is gonna look really bad. So if you make a 90-degree angle, you can prevent that from happening. Also on the top, before, actually I think that the guy who made the first model did it right, but some people do this. This is very wrong, because this edge will never be like that. It will be like that on the CAD file, but not even on the wax it will come up like that. It doesn't matter which printer you're using, it's just wrong. Yeah, the close-up made them squared. I'm not very convinced about that, but that's just one way to do it. And again, these parts fit together in case you want to make it in other metals. If I was to print this, I would put a bridge here for casting. Let me just do it something like that, just to prevent tensions in the casting. And that's pretty much it really. Again, this video is not supposed to be a CAD tutorial. I just wanted to show you why certain rings look like certain ways. It's not because of aesthetics. There's a reason for that. So these are some of the reasons. Okay. Again, I don't want this to seem like I'm criticizing someone's work. Could be that it's someone who's learning. Fair enough. We've all been there. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help you. If you have other suggestions of how to make this ring, I'm more than happy to show them and to give my opinion. And thank you so much for watching my video.